of owning a property in a prime location with great proximity and fantastic neighborhood? EJ Investments Sanyang Seaview Estate is the best choice you have been waiting for. Our Sanyang Seaview Estate is approximately 15 minutes drive away from the busy hub of Busubi roundabout and into the heart of nature, where you can have a peaceful and relaxed lifestyle with your family. You can buy a finished 4-bedroom story with 5-year flexible payment plan or a service plot with 2-year payment plan option. With over 300 homes, you'll enjoy big tar roads with covered drainage, modern electrification with solar street lights, gated entrance with security post, and a breath-catching experience of our beautiful sea view and lake view. You can own a home today at our Sanyang Seaview Estate. Call us today on 446-4838 or 325-9220. Visit our website on ejinvestments.net. EJ Investments, first in property.
Alright. Honey, did you remind him that the last time he sent the money, it was not enough to buy all the provisions?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell him.
Are you guys talking about money transfer to buy provisions?
Yes.
But
Don't you know about Baluwo?
Baluwo? What is Baluwo?
Baluwo is a service that your son can use to send provisions directly to you guys from the shop. And you don't have to worry about the exchange rate.
Tell me how Baluwo works.
It's very simple.
Just log on to baluwo.com and shop, or download the app on your phone. You can shop on the website or using the app to buy online basic products for your family and friends. With Baluwo, you decide what your money is spent on. Your money, your choice. Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.
A cold that have really been troubling me over the past few days, but I hope really I'll be audible enough for you to hear me. Right, we go straight to our twin topics today. It is the State of the Nation address by His Excellency the President, Adama Barrow, as well as we pick up from where we left last week on the Janneh Commission report. And with me to do that is Mustafa Kedabo of Kerfatu and Dr. Usman Gajigo. Doctor, welcome.
Thank you.
And Mustafa, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, we go straight to the points. Last week, President Adama Barrow delivered the much-awaited State of the Nation address. In the address, of course, we all heard that he addressed or talked about various projects, policies, plans that his government implemented to do or have planned to implement, etc., etc. But in this program, we will talk about what the president said and, in fact, what he did not say. So, if you stick with us, you will hear everything. Let me start with Dr. Gajigo. President Barrow finally came. Most people said he should have come much earlier in the year because according to legislators themselves, they would prefer the president to come in the first quarter of their legislative year. But he's already close to the end of the year. He just came now and talk about things that normally would have been tabled before them much earlier in the year. But then that is just one argument. What is your impression first with the speech?
Well, as you said, in the speech, there are some things he said and there are some things he didn't say. So let's start with some of the things he actually didn't say.
Okay.
So this could have been, you mentioned the fact that he did not come earlier in the year. This could have been turned into something positive because it would have meant a lot more things to talk about that are of importance, and this would have been an opportunity to address them. So, unfortunately, I don't think he really took advantage of that opportunity. So, there are a couple of things that I think that could have been mentioned that that were not mentioned. I mean, in terms of areas that are happening in topics that are happening in terms of politics that have been gaining momentum in terms of national discourse, and people have, it's a topical issue, and it's a part of everyday discourse. This is, I'm talking specifically about his 3-year promise.
Yeah, his tenure.
Yes. You could, the speech was also very, very thin on specific reforms that are being implemented, the implication of those reforms or structural shifts in policies. And obviously, there are a lot of, right now, most people have not, discussions on the issue of, on the Commission's report has been a bit muted because people haven't had time to digest the whole Commission.
The whole Commission. Maybe he too
hasn't digested
much.
Well,
so
he doesn't have that excuse. The government has had this report for months.
For 6 months. Anyway.
Yeah, so the government should have completely digested the report by now. So the people have an excuse for not digesting.
You were expecting more than he said about the Commission.
Absolutely, a lot more. I mean, there are a lot of questions. Obviously, people will be able to articulate these questions far more clearly as the days go on.
Okay.
But there are a lot of areas in the report where, through the government's white paper, we know they have rejected certain areas of the Commission's recommendation.
Yeah.
They have accepted some areas, and there has been some partial acceptance and rejections with regards to certain individuals. But there's a lot in the Commission's report that, for instance, that is not addressed by the white paper. That would have, and this would have been a very good opportunity for the president to address these things in great detail. But what we have instead was a lot of. Let's be frank, this was more like a campaign speech rather than a State of the Nation speech.
But to be frank, how much of it has been achieved or is even achievable? Because when he spoke the last time, many people say, well, isn't it not the same government who was telling us that they are having problems raising money to implement these things that the president said are all, been laid out, been rolled, to the Gambian people?
So, your question being?
My question, of course, is how much of what he has said in the various sectors have been achieved or are even achievable?
Well,
given the fact that we had other officials saying they don't have, they are facing difficulties in raising money to achieve those things.
Well, I've had reports that, for instance, all the pledges that were made for the NDP have not materialized. But I'm not under the impression. I mean, there's no expectation that all those pledges will be coming immediately. So the fact that some of those pledges have not come, should have some effect, maybe to some extent, on some projects that are being done, but not on the developments of, not on the works of the various ministries up to this point. Because the NDP is a long-term plan. It's not a short-term plan. So most of those resources are expected to be coming over time. So I don't think we can...
So it's still fair for him to stick to all these nice projects that he talked about are going to be implemented, even though right now the monies are not yet in.
Well, we need to differentiate about the policies. Some policies are, these are, for instance, he made a big point of some specific projects that are going to be financed by the Chinese. Grants from them.
Who did not even get a better deal from the compliments, because they were referred to as Republic of China, exactly the opposite of what they are. Okay, but that's another part of this anyway.
That's an unfortunate mistake. I'm glad our ministry has
noticed that quick.
And made the right apologies in the right diplomatic channels. But hopefully that mistake will not be repeated again.
That was definitely, yes.
Apparently a public apology.
The projects that he can boast of now, the road projects and the URR, was all this being bankrolled by, all been bankrolled, and the conference center have been bankrolled by.
The road around CDS Woolley.
The road where? CDS Woolley. All this been bankrolled by the People's Republic of China. Only for them to be referred to as exactly what they don't want. Well,
what they consider a renegade province.
But who's to blame? The president or the speech writers?
Actually, it's in the speech. The president read what is in the speech.
So the speech writers.
So the mistake
was in the speech.
It was in the speech.
That actually is that's a bigger
Someone should have been fired.
Who's to blame?
The speech writers should be fired.
Speech writers or the brains that came together.
That people must not make.
It's very costly and embarrassing.
It's one thing for the government while he's speaking, for the president to make a mistake. That is natural. That thing can happen to anyone. But somehow through the checking process of this, but I wouldn't,
But we all make mistakes, and
not on a speech.
We all make mistakes. A genuine...
A speech it's like this document.
Yes, it should be proofread by people, should go over and but then of course
written, read again, proofread.
Yes.
By
this is not a daily speech or weekly speech. It's once a year event.
Yes.
It's an event that is done in front of the whole country.
So we agree that we agree proper attention should have been given to this before it's been presented.
So I think the key point here is the key point here is not the mistake itself or the speech. Is what it is symbolic of. You know, in other words, you know, you need to have a certain a mistake like this. If there has been, you know,
you want to say if there had been?
Yes. If there has been specific process or procedures in place, then it's to actually, I mean,
avoid this.
This could be avoided.
Could it also been that the officials who might have worked on the 22 years of Gambia's relationship with Taiwan, they must have taken part, they must have a role in the preparation of the speech, and they still think that they are living in the past.
All the reason why such a person must be fired.
How many years have we switched?
All the more reason that you should
such a person
all the more
fired.
Perhaps
you cannot even change
critics would say all the more reason why he should not be in the company of people who are so entrenched in the past that they cannot even forget that.
I can't even see that as an excuse.
But anyway, that's well, it's important to the Chinese people because and it's good that the government have come out to apologize profound, because somebody who did this job to you, all this job for you, definitely need to credit him. And not do something like that. But then let's not
to be fair to Gambia too, we do a lot to them too.
I know, supporting them, etc.
But
let's not let's take that as a
trivial. That's not important for China, unfortunately. The value of what Gambia exports to China as a percentage of their imports.
Oh, it's incomparable.
It's not. If Gambia were to
can't even look.
To be realistic here, if Gambia were to disappear from the face of the earth, it would have no effect on China's economy today. Just to be realistic. Yes.
But anyway, let's take that as a trivial matter. Back to the speech, Mustafa. He outlined some of the things he didn't mention. People expect him to talk about his tenure because it is when you say the state of the nation, it's also very much been talked about. The Janneh Commission, just according to him, is just it's like somebody who's passing by. He didn't knock it. He didn't knock for us to have all what should be said, and then the release of the junglers, etc., etc. And then he, of course, we will come back to Doctor for that. Towards the end of his speech, he seemed to have thrown or, extended the olive branch, calling for reconciliation, that many people interpreted to have meant that he's probably changing his mind on his
and the latter part of
on his stand on his term. So, what do you make of it?
Well, that's a change of stance as far as the president is concerned. I mean, but I'm so also the president has changed his tone since the Brikama rally. I mean, because it was the first rally where I saw him categorically stating that he is going to go whether anybody likes it or not.
Yes.
He's going to continue.
Yes.
From that point of view, from that point on, I didn't see a similar strong rhetoric coming from the president. I think there had been a softer position, especially at a time when, given the circumstances, the 3 years Jotna thing has intensified.
Yes.
They're going to hold rallies. A lot of people are talking about them. I think that's a good thing. He understands that this thing can only be solved by a dialogue. I can't force my way through. I can win, but I cannot force my way through. Otherwise, it can turn out to be.
He failed to capture that in the speech.
Well, he did try to. He didn't talk about 3 years Jotna, of course, but he did try to. You remember where he said that that we are Gambians.
Yeah.
And that we can have our differences, but we can live together with our differences. And that, I mean, he was shown to be sort of
a little bit conciliatory.
Yes. In terms of, addressing his opponents and how the nation needs to move forward and united. So, I mean, I think that's a change of tone. I would see that political, but I think that's a change of tone given the...
You don't think he should have gone further by making direct references to what his intentions are, in terms of his tenure? Am I going to go in December? Or people need to understand me, I'll finish my 5 year and I will not declare myself elected. You think he's, up to now, he's not in position to do this?
No, it doesn't look like that. And the president is determined to move forward and to finish his term, and it does look like he's determined to move beyond that. So that's the evidence we've shown.
So despite...
if I can quote what he said, he said that that we cannot expect agreement in every debate. Nevertheless, I urge you to engage more in dialogue than in confrontation. And remember, he was addressing a very divided National Assembly.
Yes.
A National Assembly that's very politicized right now.
Yeah.
Between camps.
Yes. Maybe he was...
By
he's
definition,
talking about national
that
interest.
The National Assembly does is like, it's politicized.
It's politicized.
Yeah. But let me just, actually, I think I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that there is an attempt on his part to reframe the debate.
Yes.
But I think I'm a bit disappointed in terms of the language that is used, because if you look, the issue of like saying let's have dialogue as opposed to confrontation, let's be careful with that language here. And I think this is dishonesty on the part of the president and his supporters. If Gambians who are against his idea, his plan of going for 5 years, want to go out and demonstrate, that is, to me, is political dialogue. It is not feasible for everyone who disagrees with the president to have a face-to-face meeting with him, tete-a-tete.
Exactly.
The fact that I or somebody else want to go to the street and make my opinion known is probably one of the few ways of actually going there and making my opinion known. That is not to be interpreted as somebody who's advocating confrontation, who is against dialogue, somebody who wants instability in the country.
That's where
So I think, and it's not only that. Towards the end, there was something he said in his speech, which was, if I could quote, it says, at present, it is the citizens saying never again to state violence and abuse who engage in various forms of violence against their fellow citizens, state institutions, and officials.
So
that's the latter part of the speech.
Yes,
right? You are saying violence.
Exactly.
You are saying, he is saying that the very people who are saying never again are the people engaged in this time.
Which is flatly wrong. This is actually factually wrong. Number one. By making a direct reference to the fact that some protesters burned the compound of a police senior officer, there was no mention on the fact that that protest was prompted by a police abuse, by somebody who was actually abused in police custody, the abuse of which contributed to the individual passing away. There is no mention of that. And to speak about that, obviously, I mean, we need to mention the fact that as we speak right now, even though people were arrested for those actions, I am not aware of any investigation that has held the police accountable for the maltreatment of that individual.
There is none.
So
there is none.
So that is one topic he could have forgotten about, or at least address it adequately by bringing all parts of the story. That is.
So it's conveniently forgotten about the relevant part and using the story for political gain. So basically, on the surface, it looks like he's trying to be a statement, let's come together. But in reality, this was purely a self-serving statement. So it was a dishonest way, you are not addressing concretely things that are happening. You conveniently forget the gist of what led to people going out to protest in the first place and just focusing on the fact that people protested. What led them to protest?
Should have been addressed.
You didn't address that. So you are not being honestly trying to address the issue. And so I think that it's trying to fool people, and we shouldn't allow that to
because if we for instance address these issues if we dissect it and address it piece by piece, you understand when the president was talking about Faraba, he was talking about Gunjur, he was talking about Garawal, he was talking about Koina, he was talking about the protests in Serakunda, the protests in Birikama. The burning of the Parkote and all that.
Police station.
Now, with the exception of what happened to Koina and Garawal, which is something that is communal issue
Yeah.
that could be solved with dialogue. And I think that's not a state sanctioned crime. It's civil. It's between individual and individual.
Community,
And it's non-political.
It's non-political.
Yeah.
That aside, the issue of Faraba was caused by government.
Yes.
It was state repression.
Is that by commission or omission of something, the government?
It was the state that granted a license to a particular private company who is destroying a land belonging to a community where they grow rice. And this is where they feed.
How about Brikama?
They revolt against it. Brikama was just some young people without a pen who went to the street to just say what they think is right.
And for legitimate reasons. Basically, their local area council hasn't been performing the service it's supposed to do. And they have actually demonstrated a great deal of restraint and, if you ask me, patience. Because Brikama, people should have been going out onto the streets years ago. If you look at the lack of achievement of any
council,
despite the fact that the council is taxing people every day. So the fact that people waited until now is a sign of, if you ask me, a great deal of patience on their part. And these people didn't just go and start throwing rocks at the police. They went to demonstrate. And while they were distributing teaser, that's when the police started shooting tear gas at them. It is instructive that the government didn't pursue any criminal charges against the people in Britain.
And of course,
but that is why they didn't also, because these people did nothing. They were in fact started gathering. And these people just come, and in fact they threw tear gas. They
so
gas in a hospital.
Of course, we know what happened. We know what happened in the Dawda.
So then, of course,
the Dawda the
Serakunda. You know the Usman Dabo.
The Usman Dabo case.
The Usman Dabo case, this gentleman who is an asthmatic patient who could have actually died of natural causes, could have.
Which they said which they said was the case.
But was arrested by the police. And at the time of the protest, we were there in the morning and we published about it that very early in the morning. Dialogue could have, even a mere assurance to these young people could have tamed the situation. It took these young people 5 hours
before they have anybody.
Before they could do anything, they were at the police station, going back and forth.
Good.
Government. So everything that happened, the problem that is happening in Gunjur, the problem that is happening with the environment, the death of Keba Seka. Even the police admit was done by a police officer. That police officer, what happened?
By their own statement.
That's the one who allegedly told he's arrested, but then what?
We haven't had any trial yet.
The police did not even go to his family to greet them for the death of their son. Because or at least until the 40 days.
Okay. All right.
So you could see the guilty party in all these incidents is the state. Because like I always said, Barrow is the one with the guns. Barrow is the one with the police. I don't have the police. I don't have the guns. How can someone with so much power just come to Dr. Gajiwa and say, you want to hurt me? But how?
How can you hurt me? All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about what people will consider positive things from the
State of the nation.
Yes, he mentioned agriculture. You agree with all the, as critics would say, the glossy picture he painted about agriculture?
I think, what I agree with, what I welcomed, and I'm sure I welcomed part of it, was the reforms that he talks about in terms of the laws. He said, well, in December 19, he promised that the anti-corruption bill will be passed. We don't know in what form.
All right.
Of course, because...
That's good news, isn't it?
Well, good news depending on what comes. We have seen anti-corruption commissions that are not independent.
Well, the fact that
can hire and fire the head at will.
Well, the fact that he said it's coming is good news. Okay?
It's good news, yes.
All right.
But of course, we wait.
Any other good news?
We keep our fingers crossed.
Any other good news?
Another good news is that he talks about freedom of information, reforms of the criminal code.
Yes.
Laws that affects free speech.
Yes, I think a lot of achievement has been made in that.
In December, he said some laws will be passed.
Yes.
So far, you could say the achievements that have been made on that were relating to the GPU, lawsuit.
Yeah.
Of course, the Justice Minister played some positive parts because he didn't defend some.
Yes.
Even sedition, he didn't defend it.
All right.
So
that's a
that bill, those two bills are good.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear him talk about the FOI.
Yeah.
Freedom of
that's
Information.
Freedom of Information.
And that's very, very essential.
Yeah.
Maybe he's. But GPU is currently working. There is a civil society a coalition that's currently working on a private member bill, and they've got the support of the Honorable Minister of Justice. And likely we would perhaps we may see an FOI bill. So I think those are positive.
Those are positive ones. But I talk about agriculture. He said something significant.
Well, he said something significant about agriculture, but they are more or less the same things we always hear. Yeah. That is why people sleep. When we are doing the State of the Nation.
You mentioned it. So at least now, I mean, given the kind of people who were captured in video by camera sleeping. At least now,
it's unjustified for a lawmaker to sleep in the National Assembly.
But listen,
it's like sleeping in your office.
All the criticism about dozing of when speeches have been made were directed at the president. Now at least the president has a lot of companions in that matter. So at least they understand it is human, isn't it? Because even the harshest critics themselves fell asleep. So it's human now, especially after you've eaten some food.
As far as I'm concerned, it's unjustified to sleep in the National Assembly.
But it's not only Barrow now who's been criticized.
Yeah, so even the lawmakers who
themselves. I saw because when I followed the debate.
It's an office.
When I followed the debate online, actually, I saw first supposed supporters of one side of the political divide put up pictures of their opponents sleeping, and then another one replied with a picture of somebody from the other camp. And
so everyone was sleeping.
But
the point is, why were people sleeping?
Well,
our state
you
of the
want
nation
to blame
address,
you want to blame the nature of the speaker or the speech?
No, it's the nature of our State of the Nation address.
Well, you mean it should be so dramatized and captivating that nobody should
not dramatized.
If you have new and compelling information that people want to hear, people's interest will be piqued. So
even if they did not sleep half of last night and they have answering the call of nature.
If it is interesting enough, and it's not, if it is interesting enough, I mean, it's not, just some, boilerplate information that's copied and pasted, from
but one year to another. But what's fine and inexcusable, there are people who are supposed to listen.
No.
So my point and analyze it. If those people are caught napping, then we're having trouble then. If Ahmad Ba could be excused, okay, maybe he has seen this before, it's coming, so he doesn't think it's new. But Alaji Dawa at least should listen properly.
Alaji is a National Assembly member.
There's no excuse
for him to be sleeping.
Ahmad Ba is excused because he must have seen the documents sometimes, so Alaji should know.
Each and every one of them have seen the document before the speech happened.
So they just came
obviously, as he said, there is no excuse for anyone
for anybody to sleep.
No, in your office there is no excuse.
At least it's not Barrow now who alone will be. Perhaps his critics will drop this sleeping business.
Yeah. And also, if you look at the State of the Union address, the State of the Nation, I keep saying State of the because that's
you are from America or what?
So it's the state. The language is self-explanatory. It's the state of our economy.
Yes.
State of our
politics.
State of our affairs.
Yes.
That's what you're coming to talk to us about.
Yes.
The country is what you have been managing.
Yes.
And you are now reporting to the Gambian people through their representatives. That's what State of the Nation address is.
And what we have
now, when you come to the State of the Nation address, you talk to me about projects that have been started implementing and media have reported they are launching. Everybody knows how much they cost. Everybody knows it's been given to us by World Bank. What do you want us to do?
No new thing.
You want us to sleep?
No new thing there.
Because you are telling me what I know already. Now, when you come, State of the Nation address should be structured in such a way that it's apart from what we have been having. When you are coming to the National Assembly, the President looks at the current issues that are confronting the nation. The state of our poverty. What are you doing with it?
Well, he said some things like what on the various categories he talked about.
Things that even if we don't have a president, we'll be happy. Like a World Bank project. There will be World Bank project even without it, even when the president dies.
If we don't have a government, if we don't have a government, they will not. If we don't have a government, we won't have that.
We can have a government without a president. Even when the president is incapacitated, these are things that will happen. You know, it's like, for instance, if I'm not here, someone else will come sit here.
So what do you expect what do you expect the coming days, the National Assembly members, to do with this document? Even though a core of them have been slipping through, what do you expect them to do? Do you think they will come out with something that they will quietly
National Assembly debates this document.
Yes.
They debate
what would the debate look like?
But that is why even Salah made a hint at that.
Yes.
The fact that the president did not address some of the most topical issues.
Yes, exactly.
This is the point I'm trying to make. Like, if you are talking to me about agriculture, talk to us about the state of
any
agriculture.
new things there.
Like our agriculture is
like
in a
this
deplorable state.
This year, what do
the
we
same
expect
thing we do is the same thing we do every day.
Exactly.
So we just pay people. This government is just, it's like a company that is loaning on loss. That's what this government is. You tax. The only reason we maintain the government is because there are people we pay salaries. But
and that's what we call
government
government.
does not change people's status. The poverty level is the same as it is. Agriculture, in fact, if we go to how much rice we consume, we are told we consume 200,000 tons rice.
Yes.
And we are told we produce 46,000 tons. Talk to us about that consumption production gap and how you intend to address it.
But now let's
talk to us about how you intend to bring investment in the country. Talk to us about policy changes. Talk to us about what is not changing. What is changing? What is here? What is not here? But if you come and tell me World Bank is building 2 schools at Sibano, of course I know that. Standard reported it. And you come to... So these are the things I said should be in the state of... he wants to say something.
No, if I may piggyback, I totally agree with that, because, when I reflect, going back on what was said in his speech, I mean, it's not only agriculture. I mean, but it's given agriculture, I mean, how significant it is for the economy is something we need to stress. If you look at the government, the president's speech on agriculture, just on the laundry list of things he said, what you come away with is, is the simple realization that this government is basically doing just the same thing that Janneh did, the same thing that Jawara did. There hasn't been any new shift, any new structural shift in how we're going to do something different in agriculture. Every year it's about how many fertilizers, how many kilos of fertilizer we buy, and it's being distributed to farmers. A SAPO project which has been going on since Jawara's time. No new vision here. Yeah. So basically, agriculture is going to stay as it has been under Jawara. It's not going to change. I forget about even Janneh. I mean, I'm saying as it has been under Jawara. So the same thing, you could talk about in terms of tourism.
Exactly.
He mentioned tourism. What did he talk about tourism? He said tourism arrivals and construction of new hotels. Yeah. Which of those things are the result of government policies or something that his government is doing? No. Tourism arrivals, those are things that are determined by the disposable income of the tourists in Europe. Businesses here will be determining how many hotels they are going to build here based on their projection of demand.
But additional arrival increased arrival numbers they expected. Is it say 200,000 or is it 100,000?
Well, we've always been told 200,000 is the target.
And it would never.
But let's also be clear on this. Yeah. As far as we are concerned in the media, these are not things we are ever able to independently verify. We only take the figures that government gives us.
But we all know that
200,000
is not possible. It has not been achieved till now.
Let's even give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that it's going to be achieved or it has been achieved. What does that tell us? Things like tourism arrivals in any country, that they increase over time secularly just because average incomes are going up.
I mean, does the host country has any role to play? I think the promotions in terms of products, etc. all play a part. All play a part in.
Well, GT board does a lot of that.
And you want to, how much of the tourism arrivals do you want to attribute to the advertisements by GT board?
I'm trying to say that the host country, the destination, has a role in
destination marketing.
Yes, they have a role in multiplying the numbers. But because let me tell you this layman question. When you are in London, you are told that 1 million tourists go to Kenya. 1 million. Both Mombasa particularly and then Nairobi. You look at it now. From Heathrow to any airport in Kenya, to take the list 9 hours or so. Now, if you leave any airport in London early in the morning, you are likely to eat your lunch here in Banjul. So if a tourist knows that I can travel to a destination, much shorter and much cheaper and perhaps more interesting than going to Kenya, they would have come here. And they tell us that only 100,000 come to this country a year.
And that's what you're talking to us about destination marketing.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the kind of information they sell.
How can this be improved?
No, but they sell these things. Getty Board has a whole...
when I try to find out, what I'm told that Kenya has new products that the tourists want to see and to discover. And here we have simply the same old
But Gambia
things.
can also sell so much.
Yeah.
I mean...
So the thing, the point, see, what determines the tourist arrivals are, what you have to offer.
Yeah.
There are some things that you are endowed with naturally that you as a country, you cannot, you have no control
Maybe
over.
Wildlife in Kenya, perhaps.
No, that's not perhaps, that's for sure.
Yeah, sure.
They have the Masai Mara and they have part of the Serengeti.
Yes.
They have a lot of natural, attractions there that we don't have.
Yeah.
So even if it were 10 times the distance from Gambia, people will be attracted
They will
there
still go there.
for things that are unique to Kenya that are not available.
In the Gambia.
Now, there are things we have in the Gambia. Obviously, we are constrained by what we have naturally.
Yeah.
No, the question is, are we maximizing the value of what we have to attract the largest possible number of visitors? Not only do we want to attract people who are coming to the beach here, but there are a lot of natural resources we have where you can attract people to come in other parts of the year.
Yeah.
Currently, we have a tourism season that is highly seasonal.
Yeah.
In few months of the year, you have a lot of visitors, a lot of restaurants open. Within few months, everything is dead. Half of the restaurants that are open, they close because there are no visitors. There is not, in other words, even taking into account the natural endowments we have, there are a lot of things that our country can do to market all the attractions that we have that are not related to sunny beaches. This way you can have tourists come in other parts of the year and ameliorate these huge swings in the tourist season. Because it is not good for a business where, few months of the year you hire a lot of people, and you may have to make some projects, some estimation of what you need. Then few months of the year, all the tourists gone. You may have ordered some things that you are not going to use. They go back, and you have to lay off everyone else. Those Gambians who had jobs few months of the year, they are unemployed other times of the year.
Yeah.
So the comparison is not so much. It's not useful to compare Gambia to Kenya. The comparison would be between Gambia and another country.
Cape Verde Islands, perhaps?
Possibly, where what they have to offer is very similar to what we have to offer, and see what they are able to get out of those things. So here, we can still get a lot more tourists based on just those who want a sandy beach in the middle of the winter in Europe and get the sun.
And our reputation has been, the politicians will say, has been a peaceful country.
Well, there are many other countries that are peaceful. Cape Verde is just as peaceful.
Well, the politicians will say that's a contributing factor. And then, of course, there's all this negative publicity.
There are some things.
Our negative publicity about how cheap we can find a wife or husband.
So we're holding a lot of time on this other one.
Okay. What about defense? He talked about that.
But I want to...
Did he talk about defense?
I want to, in fact, even the way... so it's the way also the president was looking at this address and the officials were looking at the address.
You mean how they were...
The whole
okay, the way
what the president in fact went to do at the they call it state of the president said he was declaring the National Assembly open.
No, that's another term. Legislative year. But no. How can you open a legislative year when it's towards the end of the year?
It's because it's the way they are even looking at this exercise.
The way they
don't even know it's the president do not go to NASA to open it. The president went to the National Assembly to talk to them about policy issues. So that is why I said the way we even look at this whole exercise from inside should change.
But and the timing too is definitely wrong, because it should have been at the beginning of the legislative session.
But because but if you will do that, if you think of it as a policy issue, you understand?
As a
State
requirement.
of the nation, when you do it, you tell the National Assembly members your plan.
Yeah.
And you tell them what you intend to do. And you give them a hint of the kind of bills that will be before them.
Exactly.
You speak to them, you convince them that these are the right things to do.
So
that's why State of the Nations happens in a democracy.
We have to move ahead. So just in one sentence, this speech by the president, if you are to give it, rate it, 50%, 60%?
No, I'll forgo the rating.
I'm not good at ratings.
That doesn't change your position that you don't think is a good...
No, for me, it's not just Barrow. I think our State of the Nation is shit. We should change it. I'm sorry I used that language.
No, actually, the point is, or the general point I want to make, to piggyback on that, is that there are a lot of things right now that are happening.
Yeah,
it's
they are not captured in there.
No. The government is focused too much on continuing what it considers as normal, like the norms, like practices, without without sitting back, thinking and say, we need to change this, we need to do something differently. I mean, look at it, for instance, when Barrow came, none of the ministries were reorganized or changed. The same practices or policies that have been ongoing have been continued. He basically just, whatever they find there, this government, partly because they've surrounded themselves with the same people who were in the Janneh regime, but also partly because, Barrow himself doesn't seem to have any sense of imagination to think of things differently. Basically, whatever they find there, they unthinkingly adopt.
Right. Good. So let's move on now to the Janneh Commission. The next.
It doesn't seem like we will ever stop a discussion on that.
Now, let's pick up where we are. There are vague areas. At the time, of course, the Janneh Commission report itself was not in circulation. What majority of the Gambians had, in fact, not majority, a few Gambians had, was the government white paper, which just summarized what has been recommended and then give what the government intend to do, reject or accept the recommendations. But now that we have, at least we are privileged here on this show to have got a glimpse of the whole, or some bit of the report from the Commission directly. Let's talk about it. The first things first. I mean, we had issues, I know, Doctor, about the difficulties in acquiring or accessing the report itself. Why is it take? Why did it take? Why the government?
We've been lucky to have some of the books.
Some of the books, yes. We have been lucky to some of. Yes, we've been privileged to have. I know a lot of Gambians really wanting to lay hands on it. They cannot.
Well, the hard copies.
The hard copies. That's what I'm saying. But where is the soft copy itself? Is not available. That's right. We've got here are the reports we have. That's from what. So what do you make? You have troubles in the fact that it's difficult to access.
Well, I think, so we tried the day of, first of all, 2 weeks ago,
yes,
we discussed this issue here, where you were making a point that the government should be commended.
At least promise that they will
promise that the report will be out on the 13th.
Yes.
And I remember listening to the government spokesman, Mr. Sankare, on West Coast Radio, talking about the government releasing this report ahead of schedule. Of course, with all due respect to the spokesman, whom I know quite well, he was confusing meeting a deadline versus doing something ahead of schedule. Those two things are different.
Yeah.
In this case, the government's deadline, they barely met it. In a way, they actually, it's just right at the deadline. That is different from saying that you do something ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
So, but when you mentioned that, but I remember telling you, let's wait until the report comes out, because talking about the report before it comes out is not really substantial.
Yeah.
But the first point I want to make is what you raised is the fact that this report, the government announced well in advance it will be out on Friday, the 13th. What happened on the 13th? This document was almost nowhere to be found. I went to the printing office. They told me that the report wasn't gazetted, which means if it wasn't gazetted, it wouldn't be out.
Have come out, yes.
And everyone in government should have known that this thing was going to be gazetted, but somehow nobody made it a point of a responsibility. And even now that the report is starting to come out, it's trickling, you have a situation where it is a very difficult document to have. But it doesn't need to be. This is a document that is easily in soft copy. Yeah. There are several government websites, including the State House, including the Attorney General's chambers, that could have made this report easily available online, so that Gambians anywhere, irrespective of whether they're in the country or in the diaspora, can download it. But right now, to get this report, you have to pay at least $5,000 to get the report.
That's what we had here.
Yes. This is more than the average monthly income of a Gambian. Yeah. So, in other words, we are left with the impression that the government purposefully wants to make this report as difficult to access as possible. The government has no interest.
Either because that will mean that not a lot of people can be able to digest and analyze it, or perhaps they want to use the printing company at least to raise money.
Well, first of all, why go and incur an unnecessary cost?
When you could have put it online.
When you can put it online and just print a small amount. Right now, if you put this online, virtually every Gambian who really wants to read it would have been able to read part of it on their mobile phones. But they didn't do that.
Yes. Is there any reason for that, you think?
I think that, I'm left to conclude that the only reason, the government, they have to have known that if they really want to disseminate this information as widely as possible, the easiest way to do that is to make it available online.
They were restricting access.
The fact that they are restricting access tells me they are doing it for a reason.
Purpose,
and the reason for that being, there are some things in this commission that they do not want, in this report, that they do not want publicized, and they know what they have done in terms of rejecting some recommendations, in terms of being inconsistent in their application. They are trying to hide that information.
Okay. I think the right word is tokenism.
Okay, what
pretty much.
We have, Mustafa, we have the documents. What are those areas that you think government will not be interested in getting people to know right away?
So we could talk about our continuity. The continuity of the past into the present and perhaps into the future. I hope not into the future, but anyway, into the present. So let's look at the period of recommendations.
Yes.
We compare one thing.
Yes.
Doctor and I would compare the purchase of, let's start with the purchase of vehicles.
Yes.
There was a recommendation you were reading.
About what should be in place.
The companies that were recommended that they were not supposed to procure from. That the recommendations they reject, where they say the liability should be with the government and not.
Okay.
Yes. Let's go to that and let's compare these ones.
So that's one example.
That's just one example.
Yeah.
So in the commission, because commission is different volumes.
Yeah.
And so you have a volume on loans alone and grants. Yes. You have a volume
on lands,
on policies, government policies. Like policies that government have been doing that should not continue, policies that should continue. This one is a recommendation entirely. And strictly on things that should change.
So the commission definitely dealt with all the issues and
categorized
their report into 9 volumes.
9 volumes. This one is specifically
in land, procurement, grants and loans, etc., etc.
And the top guys.
The top
guys is volume 9.
Volume 9.
So
the commission left no ambiguity in their recommendations, and in all these they stated what should be done with either those institutions, or the individuals who
So this particular one is volume 7, government procurements.
Yes.
What we are looking at, part of the recommendations that the government, these people made on procurement, is to place a restriction on some companies that have been purchasing from government or procuring with government.
They should be banned totally from.
Some should be banned. Some should be temporarily banned.
Yes.
Some should be warned.
Yes.
And some of those companies, the government still doing business with them. Let's look at one of them.
Let's say a bit summary of who are those companies.
Yeah, let me read page 66. the following companies and their directors.
By the way, can you tell
this is volume 7.
Volume 7.
This is volume 7, government procurement.
Yeah.
Page 66.
Yeah.
The following companies and their directors that have shown themselves to be consistent in colluding, the word is colluding. Colluding with the office of the president or the minister of finance officials by willingly circumventing and contravening procurement rules should be charged under section 115 of the criminal code for all procurement contracts from which they benefited before 9th October 2014 and under the section 69 of the Gambia Public Procurement Authority Act 2014 for contracts after October 2014.
Yeah.
You see, there is you realize that they mentioned criminal code and GPPA.
Yeah.
Because before 2014, the GPPA Act was not there.
Was not there. So it's a criminal code.
Yes. So they should be banned from participation in any government procurement
And which are those
for
companies?
a period of 5 years.
Which are those companies?
They are Euro Africa Group Limited,
Oh, yes.
Global Trading Group, TK Motors Limited,
I passed their vehicles.
TK Export,
Plenty of them on the way.
TK Export Limited, Competence Company Limited. Now, what did the white paper say?
What did the white paper say about them?
So the white paper is essentially saying, with regards to this particular recommendation, that basically the responsibility of adhering to procurement rules should be only with the government. In other words, it said the primary responsibility of compliance with procurement rules rests with the state, and that the state's failure to adhere to procurement rules cannot be visited on
the companies.
Yes. Wow. This is I mean, the government position is very difficult to defend. And, because basically, on that basis, there cannot be any criminal liability for companies in terms of bribery.
Bribery.
Yeah. Because, in other words, if you were to go and, and this is actually in direct violation of a statutory, it's a statutory violation. It's a violation
GPP
of the criminal
Act.
code. Yes.
GPP Act and criminal code.
And GPP,
So these companies were deemed by the Commission to have violated those codes. And the least that can happen to them is at least ban them.
So we
But
can
the government is saying it's not the
The
best
Commission
way.
actually didn't go that far. Some of them was just temporary.
5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
5 years.
5 years.
But he said should be charged.
They should be charged also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the government basically is saying they cannot even be held accountable for anything on that. Like all the responsibility for
Should be on the
not
government.
adhering to procurement
Should be
rules
government.
Should be government.
And those,
But that's not even more curious. What is more curious is that these same companies were also companies that the Office of the President in 2017 took vehicles from. And these pockets were also not, they were passed through GPPA, but they were not vetted. This is called no objection. No objection simply means, in procurement, it simply means, I go to GPPA, GPPA look at my justifications, they don't think it's justified, but they say go and do it anyway.
So now
that's what no objection means. So it's single sourcing, but they allow it to go. And let me give you figures. This is internal audit report, internal audit department by Office of the President when Barrow is in power. TK Motors, 2,780,000
contract.
No, I'm giving you different purchases of vehicles they've made.
Yes.
2 cabin pickups, they bought it from TK Motors 2017, over 2 million plus. 3 motor vehicles, I don't know which motor vehicles, they are not specified. This is an audit report, internal audit department, 2017. I'm just giving you a list. 3 motor vehicles, TK, the same place, TK Motors, 5,965,000 plus. 4 vehicles again, TK Motors, over 6 million plus. 4 vehicles again, TK Motors, over 8 million plus. 1 vehicle from TK Motors again, over 2 million plus. Procurement of 2 vehicles from TK Motors and Simon Mahdi and Sons again, over 3.5 million plus.
Now,
by Office of the President, and these are all no objection, no objection. Like I said, no objection simply means it's single sourced. But you send your single source files to GPPA, GPPA look
And
at it, it's unjustified, but they say go and do it.
Go and get and do it.
In other words, these procurements were done not in accordance with the
procurement.
Exactly.
Yes, and these things, and it's important to stress, what the list is reading from, these are procurements that happened with this government.
Where?
Very recently.
Very recently.
The very government with the
so
very
in order,
companies
basically, what we are saying now,
it's a continuation of the past into the present.
Okay, and the commission definitely said this. One of them, TK Motors, and the other company, Euro, whatever the name is, is supposed to have siphon a lot of money from our mineral resources or whatever, petroleum or whatever. Are companies that the governments now should be wary of dealing, having to do anything with them, and some should be even banned for 5 years. Why do you think, isn't that a sufficient reason for the government to protect these companies, because they have already started dealing with them? Why would they want to be interested in continuing to deal with them?
Well, I mean, that's what we.
As the comment papers.
Yeah. So this is. I mean, you don't even need the Janneh Commission report to tell you that already you are breaking your procurement rules.
Even your own national audit showed you that.
So basically what the Janneh Commission, the favor the Janneh Commission does for the country is to let us see very clearly, without any doubt, that the wrongs that they have uncovered under the Janneh regime, this government is basically just operating as if nothing has happened.
So the Janneh Commission could, if the recommendation as far as they are concerned, can prevent us from dealing with this kind of companies who can induce, bribe, or use whatever levels to corrupt the public officials whenever they are looking for contract, isn't it? But the government is not interested in that. It looks like only the white papers. Any other place where you think the government really... one thing I want you to clarify, there is one bit which said that properties like Mariatou Farms, Demban Clinic...
That's on land.
Lands, that's on land. Mariatou Farm, Demban Clinic...
this is volume 3. 1 and 2, by the way, are one volume.
SO Banana Farm, etc., etc. The Janneh, the abattoir in Abuko, the Janneh Commission said those things should be sold. And the government said that idea is rejected. So, what does that mean?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
I mean,
I want you to let's be specific to one.
There are properties.
Yeah, just that one example.
On which on the recommendations on them were rejected by government, but the government paper did not say what will happen next, and that is the abattoir in the National Livestock Abattoir in Abuko, Demban Clinic, Dr. Jack Fall's former clinic, Mariatou Farm here, and SO, a big fund said to belong to Janneh. The commission said those things should be sold, but the white paper government is saying that they reject that. But they didn't say what will follow. But what status does that leave? That rejection of the commission recommendation, what status does it leave with these properties?
I think, so the way to look at this rejection is when the commission makes a recommendation and the government rejects it, we need to just look at what the argument is for rejecting it.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
So it's, there are a lot of areas the commission made a recommendation and the government rejected. Some were, rejected partially.
For example, Dunes Hotel.
There are also areas that they were silent on.
Yeah, Dunes Hotel.
Silent in a lot of in cases.
Dunes Hotel, for example. The commission is recommending that the money used for it came from GNPC. The money used to purchase Dunes Hotel came from the GNPC. So if the government is saying that it should not be sold as recommended by the commission, it should not stay then. Does that mean it should stay as GNPC property, or any money raised from there should go to GNPC? That's what I want to understand.
My assumption, I mean, since as far as the white paper didn't clearly state it, we can only assume. But my assumption is that if white paper does not clearly reject, its silence is acceptance. 1. That's my assumption. And 2, if also the dunes is recommended for selling to be sold, because they want to offset the debt owed to the GMPC, and the government says we are not selling the Dunes Hotel. My assumption is that the government intends to keep the Dunes Hotel and utilize it
for something else.
That could be the only agreement.
Farad Farm said, the commission said it should be given to the
Because
community.
you have to obviously state that now nothing of those assets belong to Janneh. Every asset Janneh owns
now belongs to the state.
Now belongs to the state.
All right. Now.
So if the state rejects any finding made, the state takes it now.
So Farad Farm said it should go back to the community. The government said no.
I think the government intends to keep it.
All right. Yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah.
You were raising concern also about some issues in the commission report that either the government is not interested in getting it known as soon as possible, or even known by public, or they are silent about it completely.
So we could look at also the responsibility of individuals. Because
yes, for example, last week
we can look at also policy issues. You see, the Janneh Commission also recommended for, like for instance, if we have investors here, they take them to the office of the president. The Janneh Commission thinks that should stop.
Yeah, like people get given access
I think
to
it should
investors instead of going to.
That should be with GAIPA.
GAIPA or GCCI or whatever.
They definitely made a lot of recommendations with regards to policies here, and this has been one of them. Some, I think, also on state-owned enterprises.
That's what he said.
Yes, and but basically, I mean, these are things that it didn't need. You didn't need the Janneh Commission to point out. Practices. That were normal under Janneh, that were not consistent with any acceptable, standards of governance or procedures in a well-run country.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what you see is that those specific recommendations in terms of not taking investors to the State House, making so GAIPA, a state body that has been mandated and set up for that purpose, making so that they go through that, those things are not currently being respected. One example being the American company that wanted to invest in agriculture.
Okay.
But GAIPA was completely bypassed. The Gambia Armed Forces went straight to the State House with the investor.
And they got a deal.
Exactly. And it's only led to people's outcry that somehow that deal seems to be hanging in the balance. But basically, those recommendations that the Commission does, those are things that that we have found to be, continuation of practices by this very government. So it leaves, one is left to ask whether or not this government will be able to implement those recommendations or not.
Now, last week we were talking about how do they determine that Mustafa should be warned, Gajigo should be banned. We were looking at the gravity, what is the difference in the gravity of the allegations against them. Today we have, for example, we will say, how much
is this an allegation now?
Now, what I'm saying is, the
commission's findings against them. To be clear, the Janneh Commission is a court.
Yes.
Like it's not it's not a court of judicial justice that says you are X, Y, and Z, but it has the powers of a commission established by law. In fact, powers of the High Court.
In fact, they called
if they ban you and you don't challenge it at the Court of Appeal, it stands.
Still by. So that means,
and by law.
So let's call it now findings.
So these are conclusive.
So let's look at the findings against those individuals. Last week dealt with Alhaji Sise, the protocol officer.
Yeah.
And we were trying to see how much of, and Mamure, of course, why are they given different treatment when it's been suggested in many quarters they are as guilty of the allegations or the findings against them as others, like Mumuru Sabali and others who got a ban. Any specifics in the Janneh Commission, particularly?
Yeah, no, I mean, the Janneh, I mean, they provided, let's look at the case of Mamure, for instance, or Alhaji. I mean, of course, there's a long list of individuals. The problem here is that the government was very selective in terms of who bears, the full brunt of the recommendation. The commission provided a very convincing and conclusive, if you ask, I mean, based on my opinion, case against Alhaji Usman Sise. I mean, this guy did, obviously, I mean, the government was talking about, things like, a protocol officer has, various responsibilities, and their terms of reference are not written down, and therefore they could have. This guy was simply doing things he was asked to do. I mean, but the problem with that is that it's just the fact that you have you don't have the terms of reference being explicitly written down doesn't mean that people who are appointed at the highest level of government don't have responsibilities. These are adult people who are appointed in positions of trust. They know what is right and wrong. When they're asked to do something, they know very well what they are being asked to do is a wrong thing. For them to come and say, oh, my position is not, wasn't well defined, or I didn't violate a specific policy, when in fact, let's say, for instance, in Mambure's case, there was actually a specific government regulation he violated. So the argument used by the government to absolve, Alhaji Usman Sise, actually is inconsistent because when you apply that to Mambure, Mambure violated something, an actual government policy.
What did the commission said he did?
Yeah. So to me, if I would fall,
that is to say, he shouldn't be a signatory to.
Yeah, to official accounts, ministers. So to me, I mean, if you
and GOs also, the general orders and financial instructions, I think they apply to all civil servants, public servants, right?
Which one?
Like the GOs
the
and
general
the general orders and the financial instructions. And their rules, they apply to them.
Yeah. All right.
I think there are principles governing. So if you even say there is no law governing protocol officers, is that even supposed to make sense? Because protocol officers work within a particular set of system.
Exactly.
And that system is guided by laws.
And also, just a matter of what's reasonable. I mean, what do you expect? What do you, it just applies reasonable test. Does any of, whether or not your position is well defined, is there any position in government that requires you to go officially, basically be an errand boy for the First Lady, cashing checks from official government accounts, ferrying this money in a way that is not following any procedure, any rules. You need, protocol officers, by their very nature, they are supposed to know process.
Absolutely.
If someone like this guy cannot tell what is right and wrong, he's just basically telling people he doesn't have the integrity and the qualification for any position right now. And what is troubling is that he actually said to the commission he believed he did nothing wrong. So this guy would have no problem repeating the same things he did. That's what he told the commission.
Because he didn't even know he was wrong.
Yeah. So he doesn't know.
Now he's been told that he's not wrong, or he's just been warned. So that not to do it again.
So that's the interesting thing. And for me, what's the moral lessons of that?
Yeah.
I think Barrow was very eloquent himself when he said that you cannot do the same thing and expect a different result.
But he's doing this.
That was perhaps the most eloquent statement to have come from him in 3 years. So, but this is the truth. You cannot do the same thing and expect a different result.
Different results.
So I mean, if you look at also the Janneh Commission, it talked about how to reform the SOEs. And I
state-owned enterprises.
Yes, state-owned enterprises. Of course, we had the president was talking about tabling a bill about the state-owned enterprises. I don't know what that bill entails. I don't know whether it's about the independence. Of course, they did present a bill earlier. I'm not sure whether you read it about central bank, and they thought that that was to guarantee the autonomy of the central bank. So I think perhaps a similar bill may also come for the SOEs, for the state-owned enterprises.
So that the president, by executive orders, may not intervene and divert their money.
But you know that earlier this year there were allegations of Office of the President's meddling in terms of appointing and firing of board members.
Yes.
Yes, unceremoniously.
Yes.
Of Gamtel. Of course, these were allegations, but there were. I mean, this is how it starts.
So is this bill expected to remove all that?
Well, we leave that to the drafters of the bill.
Yes, we haven't seen the bill yet.
Yes.
All right.
So, we will leave that to the drafters of the bill. But that's also one thing the Janneh Commission recommends. They also recommended, in the light of the passport scandal, well, so-called passport scandal.
Well, passport scandal, yes.
Yes.
Diplomatic passport.
Yes. So I think this topic is also vital, and the fact that they're saying the powers that it's granted to the president, the discretionary powers, to grant citizenship to so-called investors, and give them diplomatic path, should be defined and contained, and because these are the things that
led to these things, and you saw on social media. Yes, that's right. Who are supposed to be economic advisors. All right, gentlemen, Doctor, as usual, Dr. Usman Gajiko and Mustafa Dabo, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on this panel, on the brunch this week. On behalf of them and our technicians in the background, we wish you a very good Saturday and a brand new week on Monday. Goodbye.
Okay.
Talong sufficient, known as Galtan Palace. Janka hair dressing kela, nka body care ke, nka manicure ke, nka massage ke time to time, not all the time. Nka double sifa jamal fana ke, all baby hair dressing no kono, nka hair ke, nka nails ke, danaka nka hair treatment ke. Business owning is like neka debero ke, foi ke deberlate am bele nga debero no doro nga wisla pour nga fansundu la soto ya wala mfoloti ando do ko ko de ngalo nyame atela munyon tawalte nyon tawalo dal non daga tarafu du mo ko no bat kadu ko ke fana ko mayatal harma de ni la destiny lo wala tan du nyena kola ya ko nke soto janne wati ko mbemu musoti nyame sometimes ni ka mo deda aka kolea ba kene because mo la fi na fenwol man kilia dol biji bukala fi fen jamal salon tiyo do biji comme dal damawol mbuka lon kare lafta minel nsi nyininka ni nata ila fitana nyaadile but modo biji kolea tala hani ibe fenwo ke kan isla aka kumulo ko ibe tiñarol la janding aka nyinya but itel kamera comme building starting long anyanta ka perfect so ko wor kolea ko so sometimes ika like for example ikatara mo concealer kane aya fo concealer yin siyadal atala wala iba de dakan aba bulutala aba makan so purino mari nyumwe jama ka ke kola ya kolti kam ibuka pare dal ni pare te ka kontan le bar jama jandi ka pare ha ke problem balti because ital camera coming asiyatale wala adoyatal dol bije ni be kala maka e ka fo ko ni warata baake dol bije wol safo ko ameseyata so ni ka nyu ne le fo janding albenyo moyla sometimes isaje nga fo ko mbato ngade da ni ngade da na taro ko ami nyafa nga abonde ilafta men na ngoke bar pour science intenting ilafita min na yewoje fonga pare do monde wala fonga ta fo nyaato do monde imare sina fenje ilafita men na bar science intenting aba koleral pour yaaji ay nyinya ko kolea ko so sometimes debero modol biti kuntuyol noydale dol biti ko man hani deber bambande wala ike debele eta fotima ya fo ko ma like yanda ka be bondile ne ya bondi na ya de da ko wol kolea ko stolem jang mo sabale be jang for now mo employ mo sababu attachment lati mo fula mo training lati jam famoto mo fula do wota salon de ndorola enata non attachment no ne kumballo fulo ni wuluta bare killing tuta jang membe attachment no bare fula do won mo na apprenti let jang nga kullu lal soto le nga futu situ lal soto nga kasol me ko bol soto minu kananan pour e nyanta ka fintele e day kata kulop o e kata e fana kata mulla la kulli du lal to nga wol soto le nga make up sifal to nyambolo nga bindo e fana so special min kara mundalo min kana mol kana pour que kondugo dol kana pour kamiso debe do be meso tekla do be na fol karala sometimes c'est na fol fana deda pour que wa ne tabulo kan do je be meso do je le min yalon ko dol mu rawlate dol mu sot ko tolte dol mu normal te wolti daro sawo nonu nyaato wo jam fadam fele fa an sawo non dino janding sanjululu ko teke ngaayele dulal to mini yalon ko sulatala places like birikama nyolto gunjuru nyolto kata ñu ko mala demande so sawo non dino an malla fi salono damala sawo non dino be karamo sotola sutanen tile wala mona dirimde because nene nga teaching kele ngalo ne min bije so laftala kam mo karande e bo so wala bo street odo e ke konta be nyame wala tambentala dal ko jamme ko loli opposite Gaddafi nuro ka number me use jam wala affixel de anen gamsel affixel on 2458163 gamsel on 9017500 mono be jibe rola e keta moti min lafita ka ke hairdresser te silo be walandinne school ol be janne sponsor ka tara janne min fana mo wolo lalti se dindi won encourage me cho be na ko mayata especially hairdressing tata dawada abijele no bere lafta ka nyinya itata Mali itata Mauritania itata Senegal itata India itata dawada ko sun ka telel kono jibe ye momoji akke kuri wala ka finte so ye dindi wala encourage wala mini yalan ko sitale pour ka mecho karan e be siring e ta fo maso to ndem kela imba fole ko min yalan ko fay man ko dosto pour ka jo kata mecho nyin karan isita mo la salon de ke apprentité ye daniroke pour moli sponsor mol janne min yalon ko e ka mol mako pour ka ikarande free so mo kana siya foko maso to mbe min kela
Honey, did you remind him that the last time he sent the money, it was not enough to buy all the provisions?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell him. Are you guys talking about money transfer to buy provisions?
Yes.
But don't you know about Baluwo?
Baluwo?
What is Baluwo? Baluwo is a service that your son can use to send provisions directly to you guys from the shop. And you don't have to worry about the exchange rate. Tell me how Baluwo works. It's very simple.
Just log on to baluwo.com and shop or download the app on your phone. You can shop on the website or using the app to buy online basic products for your family and friends. With Baluwo, you decide what your money is spent on. Your money, your choice. Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.